Imam Ali once said, "One who surrenders his will to his desire slips into the jaws of death." Now take a second to think about that. It's a striking image, isn't it? It's not just poetic, it's a powerful warning. When we let our desires dictate our lives, we risk losing control completely, and that can have very real consequences. Look at history. The story of Icarus, for example, still echoes through time. He had wings made of wax and feathers, but what happened? Despite warnings not to fly too high, his ambition, his unchecked desire, drove him closer and closer to the sun until, well, the wax melted and he plummeted. It's a metaphor, sure, but it's also a cautionary tale about losing balance between our aspirations and our limitations. And it's not just myths or ancient teachings. Let's bring it closer to home. In creative fields, like media production for instance, how often do we chase fleeting trends? Those short-lived ideas that feel so fresh and exciting at first, but end up hollow. When we let these trends dictate our work, we're not only risking the integrity of our craft, but also stifling genuine creativity. It's like pouring water into a sieve. It's never fruitful. The bottom line is, desires need moderation. Letting them run unchecked can lead to a kind of self-destruction, professionally or personally. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, wind rushing past, the ground beneath your feet feeling less stable with every inch forward. That's what it's like when we let our aspirations, unchecked and unexamined, drive us. It's exhilarating for a moment, sure, but the risk of losing your footing is very real. Take the 2008 real estate market crash. It stands as a textbook example of what happens when ambition, uncontrolled and fueled by greed, takes hold. People chased profits without regard for long-term sustainability, and, well, we all know where that led. Entire families lost their homes, financial institutions crumbled, and the ripple effects are still felt today. Honestly. It's a harsh lesson in what happens when desires aren't tempered by foresight or responsibility. Now think about this in your own life. How do you tell the difference between ambition that elevates you and desires that might lead you, unknowingly, toward that same cliff? Is it even always clear? Because, let's face it, most of us don't consider the risks when we're chasing something we want. So how can we start making that distinction? So how do we find that balance between our desires and reality? Imam Ali emphasized the importance of aligning our aspirations with rational thinking, and I think this idea holds tremendous value even today. Let's break it down a bit. First, it's about being intentional with what we want. Instead of just chasing every fleeting desire, we need to ask ourselves a simple but essential question. Is this really worth it? Is this aligned with my larger goals, or am I just responding to a momentary urge? Sounds easy in theory, but in practice, well, it's a different story. One way to navigate this is through cognitive reframing. This is a fancy way of saying, change how you look at things. Let's say you're faced with a setback. It's so easy to feel frustrated, right? But what if you paused, maybe took a step back, and asked yourself, how can I use this moment to refine my approach? Doing this can, honestly, save you from falling into the trap of acting out of frustration or impulse. Another thing to think about is setting more realistic goals. Dreaming big is great, don't get me wrong. But if those dreams are too disconnected from your current reality, the gap can be discouraging, even paralyzing. When you break things down, create smaller and achievable milestones, it's like building a staircase toward that bigger ambition, one thoughtful step at a time. And, I've seen this firsthand. Early on in my career, I had this opportunity to work on a project that seemed, exciting and kind of glamorous at first glance. But when I really assessed it, I realized the time commitment and the lack of creative freedom weren't aligned with where I wanted to go. Choosing to walk away at that moment was tough. I'm not going to lie, but looking back, it was one of my smarter decisions. It opened doors to opportunities that were more meaningful and, ultimately, more fulfilling. So here's the takeaway. Managing our desires doesn't mean we have to suppress them completely. It's about understanding them, refining them, and ensuring they lead us toward growth rather than destruction. As Imam Ali teaches, rational control over our aspirations is what paves the path to real success. And that's it for this episode. Reflecting on these ideas has been a pleasure, and I hope you found some value in it too. Until next time, take care and remember, balance is everything.